Active listening is a counterpart to self-disclosure. It's one of the key and critical communication practices that one can engage in to be the best or a better partner. There are a couple of things to keep in mind in active listening. It's your way of showing your partner or some other person, a friend or whoever, that you really understand them. And it's your way of confirming or affirming their perspective on the world. So I'm going to give you a set of principles or sort of guidelines to follow when trying to engage in active listening. First, an active listener engages in what's called emotional labeling by putting feelings into words. You want to help your partner begin with this task or in order to help your partner sort of begin with the task of understanding what it is that they're saying, you can ask tentative questions, like saying, it sounds like, or I'm sort of hearing that you might be feeling somewhat reserved or shy in these circumstances. Your partner might not be fully aware of the emotional content of what they're saying, and emotional labeling shows them that you are listening and that you are reflecting back or trying to reflect back the emotional content of what they're saying. So an active listener tries to emotionally label what someone is saying to them by putting feelings into words. Second, an active listener asks probing questions. These are questions designed to help someone or draw someone deeper and to get a more substantive and complete details or information or concerns from some information that the partner is sharing. So for example, you might ask hypothetical questions like, what do you think might happen if you told or did X? Probing questions trying to get more from one partner. Third, you should validate the other by responding in an interested way. You're trying to acknowledge the other person's thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and you're trying to do so empathically and in a way that confirms the importance of your partner's attempts to communicate. So you might say something like, I really appreciate your willingness to talk about this problem that you're facing or this difficult issue that you have. So you're trying to validate the response, you're trying to validate the other by responding in an interested way. Fourth, you should allow for uncomfortable or comfortable silences to slow conversation down. We don't need to fill all airspace with words because that comfortable silence can also be communicating something. Too often, we try to intervene or intervene by engaging in communicative practices to fill in this space, and we're not giving a partner the kind of room to think more or talk more about what it is that they're feeling or thinking. So allow for comfortable silences. Fifth, use I statements and focus on the content of what your partner says and not your partner. An I message lets your partner know how you feel and why, and preserves the conversation from sort of moving toward the kind of criticism, contempt, defensiveness communication cycle. So if you engage in you statements, like you're really feeling upset, then that's going to lead to criticism, contempt, and defensiveness. But if you say instead, it seems to me, or like, I feel like you're sort of sounding like you're a little bit upset here. The I statement can deflect or move away from the criticism, contempt, defensiveness cycle. So try and use I statements. The last is a more advanced technique of active listening that I call image response. When you're engaged in a conversation with someone, inevitably, whatever the other person says will produce an effect on the listener. We know from the somatic marker hypothesis and from the extensive research in interpersonal communication that this effect is not just a matter of the words that one person chooses, but rather a consideration of several different factors. So one way to understand the effect is to pay attention to the image being created in the mind of the listener. So if I'm active listening, if I'm the listener, I need to be aware that my partner is producing an image in me. So an active listener reflects this image back to their conversation partner. It's important to note that the image may not be the same thing that the speaker has intended from a story or from a piece of information. But I'm telling them, well, this one image is really sticking out. In other words, it's not just a matter of mirroring, but of actively reporting on the main effect the speaker is having on the listener. I might say to my partner, wow, I can just see your boss's face and how angry he must have been. And that would have been an authentic response because that's what I'm picking up on, instead of some other detail from the story that my partner is using. So those are some things to practice when trying to actively listen.